Meeting for Monday, July 22nd, 2013. First item on the agenda is the signing of the warrant.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
I also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Next is approval of the July 8th, 2013 minutes.
Motion, Bill.
Seconded.
I also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Next, we have citizen participation. Is there somebody in the room who doesn't have an item on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and stand up, identify yourself.
Peter Scandone, I live on Whitewood Road.
Hey, Peter. Okay.
I have a petition, and I'd like to explain it. It's about 6 minutes, if you have the time.
All right. Well, why don't you do the best you can to wrap up a little less than that, please?
Well, first up, I want to thank the board and the board chairman for giving me
Peter,
this.
excuse me, let's have him come up front.
How about the mic, please?
All right, yeah, why don't you come on up to the mic so folks at home.
This
mic?
Can I
You
have a
can,
second?
That's enough?
Good idea.
I'm trying something different here. I've never used an iPad for this, but in my retirement, I thought I'd try it out.
there you go.
Okay. I have a petition, like I said, and I went around to various businesses throughout Milford. And first of all, my name's Peter Scandone, like I said. I'm recently retired from Commerce Mafrey Insurance Company. I was the national catastrophe adjuster, director of catastrophes for Mafrey Commerce Insurance Company, and I have an MBA degree. I've lived in Milford for 50 years. My wife is a lifelong resident. Both of us frequent many of the establishments in town, especially the restaurants we enjoy, and we've even become close friends with a lot of these business people. As a result of our relationships with these dedicated Milford folks, I felt motivated to develop a petition and present it to you gentlemen. And it's currently signed by about 27 business owners in town. Many of them expressed sincere and intense concerns for the loss of business and the proposed casino development that this will cause them. These people are hardworking taxpayers. They've supported our town over the years. They've supported our sports. They've supported charitable programs in town here. And what I'll do, I'll read the petition to you gentlemen. We, the undersigned, are adamantly opposed to the siting of a resort-style destination casino in Milford. Our established businesses have built a loyal customer base for Milford and beyond. Over many years, a casino will undermine our ability to survive by promoting their own competing businesses that will be under their roof. Additional traffic brought to the area by the casino will exasperate our already crowded roads and serve as a deterrent to existing customers visiting our businesses. We believe additional visitors to the area will not benefit our business due to the all-inclusive nature of a destination resort casino. We also believe that the casino will be competing with our labor pool, making it harder for us to find qualified employees. I expect this list will continue to grow for the next several months as I have more time to visit additional business owners here in town. I want to stress these businesses want to remain viable and contributing segment to our community. They employ our neighbors. They have a long history of commitment to their employees. They are valuable taxpayers here in Milford. These businesses were quite anxious to have their concerns presented to you. For example, many signed the petition not only for business concerns, they were also very sensitive to the social impact that will change the character of our town. None of these establishments I visited are national chains. They are valued, long-time taxpayer members of the community who are fearful of the impact a casino will have here. Some were so sensitive about this issue, they were fearful of signing for political and business reasons. I also learned from my discussions there is a deep undercurrent of suspicion and fear that their business will suffer significant loss of revenue and may even cause them to go out of business. As the mayor of Ledged, Connecticut, John Rodolico, recently commented, the problem is that casinos are self-contained. They are built to provide all of the needs of their customers. If anything, it has been a struggle because of the competition provided by these casinos to the local businesses. These Milford area businesses are in tuned in this matter and have learned that the Connecticut Foxwood facility includes many businesses that will create massive competition. For example, Foxwoods, Connecticut features all kinds of restaurants. They have casual, nightlife around the clock, festival buffets. They have accessories, apparel, on and on, jewelry, watches, handbag. I'll quote, "Get everything you need to look good and feel your best during your stay at Foxwoods." Spa and salon facilities. They have bowling alleys, 20 lanes, host up to 800 people. They have catering department, 16 meeting rooms, whether the meeting is for 10 or 2,000 people as they advertise. The casino meets all of the customers' needs within the casino property. I think that's obvious. As far as jobs, the proposed destination resort casino will need thousands of employees. A couple of local restaurant owners also expressed they are under the gun when it comes to hiring quality cooks, waitstaff, bartenders. If a local restaurant has trouble meeting its employment needs, then where will the casino get 3,000 workers? The casino exasperates this problem many times over. So, in conclusion, we need to support these business owners who in many cases are also local residents. They depend on us. They are about Milford. They are not carpetbaggers. They are small mom-and-pop establishments. You owe it to them to think long and hard about the effect that a billion-dollar casino will have on them. Even the loss of several customers per day of every week, of every month, and of every year will be devastating to their livelihood. The bottom line is the Gaming Commission's wow factor that I keep hearing from Mr. Stephen Crosby will harm the very people and businesses who have supported Milford over many, many years. So what I'll do, I'll provide you with a copy of the petition and the business letter that I gave to these establishments I visited. I don't know if you have any questions.
Okay. Normally, we don't entertain questions during the invitation to speak, but we would appreciate any copy you have of that petition and any businesses that have signed it.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Good boy, Peter. Very nice job. Good job.
Next, for scheduled appointments, we have,
Billy, there's a gentleman at the top.
oh, I'm sorry, another person, invitation to
There are
speak?
actually two of us. Go ahead. Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you.
Nice job.
I didn't even see it.
My name is Lloyd Curry, 23 Simon Drive, Milford. On June 3rd, I was at the meeting at the high school, and I asked Mr. Patera for financial statements for Foxwoods, Connecticut. And I was told that if I signed an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, that can be made available. From there, I was given to Alan Kronberg, told to provide my information to him. I met with him twice, failed to receive anything. Finally, I got a name of an attorney, Tom Allen, out of Brookline, that represents Foxwoods. Called them and told that we'll get back to you. That was on 6/11/2013. 6/21 called again. 6/28 called again. 7/2 called again. 7/10 called again. And being put off. Nothing. And and they said they would contact Mr. Matera and find out what the story was, and nothing. I don't know if there's
Okay.
any comment from.
I recall your questions. What I'm trying to avoid is to make sure there's not a give and take this evening. I think you brought to the attention of the board your frustration in seeking answers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that Mr. Villani reach out to the representatives of Foxwoods and see what we can do to expedite that. And I do recall your question that evening. And I do recall Mr. Pachero's response. So what we'll do is we'll help facilitate that now that we're aware that you haven't received that information. Again, trying to avoid the give and take that might happen impromptu. I want to make sure that doesn't happen this evening. But we'll owe you a response, and this board will make that commitment to help you get that.
Sure.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Is
Lloyd.
there a timing on that? Because he's been dancing a lot.
I'm sorry, did you want to address the board?
Well, I did, but it's related, one of it was related to his, is there a timing that he'd get back to him? Because he's been kind of waiting for a couple of weeks.
He'll get back to him tomorrow. I don't know whether he'll have the answer tomorrow, but Mr. Valani can get back to him tomorrow.
Okay. I did have one question, though.
Go ahead, please step up.
Sure.
And, well, I might recognize you for the members of the community.
Some may not.
Name and address.
Jim Spino, Milford, Mass., 15 Wales Street. Just a question, will there be an opportunity to have the chairman of the tribal council in front of the residents of the town of Milford to answer questions?
I haven't seen any part of any agenda that has that on the agenda. We can ask the members of Foxwoods, and again, we will get back to you.
Would selectmen agree that that may be an important,
There's
Element?
there's not going to be a give and take, Tim.
Okay.
This is not an item for the agenda, but I understand your concern. You'd like to have that opportunity. We'll approach the Foxwoods representatives, let them provide you a thoughtful response, and then we owe you the response.
good.
So this is a board-
I hope there is, with $1 billion coming in.
It may be yes or no, but it may,
Yeah. Well, they're going to manage it and they're going to
I understand.
lead developer. I think it's important to have that person here.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, with the citizen participation, is there anybody else that would like to approach the board? Okay, with that said, not seeing anybody else, we're going directly to our scheduled appointment with Foxwoods, Massachusetts LLC.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman Buckley, and I'd like to thank the board and Mr. Villani for allowing us to come before you today. Purpose of our visit today is to follow up on outstanding questions that were raised during our 3 prior presentations with regard to traffic, sewer, and water systems. But before we say that, I wanted to make a comment. There's an old adage that what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And I will say that this process, I think, has been a very complete one and one that has made us a great deal stronger. In analyzing all of the mitigation issues, as I hope you've come to see, there's been a great deal of research and thought behind all of our proposed solutions. And I will say that a lot of that has been driven by this board and its advisors, who have really challenged us quite thoroughly along all of those lines. And I think that some of the things that we've been able to do have turned out positive as a result of that process. So I want to say, from our perspective, it's been a very thorough, healthy, and complete process, and we're actually quite appreciative of the work that's been done by the board and its advisors, which we think has been fruitful. As we said, we would try and approach this in a cooperative way. I think that you can see that we have tried to make adjustments where adjustments have been suggested, like with the traffic program and like with moving the site to the lower bowl at the request of the Army Corps of Engineers, and other things that have come up. We do recognize the concerns of the community, such as the ones raised tonight. Obviously, it's our strong opinion that those concerns are really not founded on anything other than fear, and that one will see is that, in fact, a lot of these businesses within the community will actually thrive as a result of our being here, because we do generate a lot of traffic. We do generate a lot of business for the local economy. As I mentioned before, what hasn't been mentioned is the fact that we'll try and procure over $50 million of goods and services from the local community. My guess is that's a good thing for a lot of the businesses here. I don't see us competing for customers or for employees necessarily, because we have a different product. I live in Las Vegas, and you couldn't drag me into a casino restaurant with my wife and family. We do everything we can to avoid it. We frequent a lot of the locals places, and that's what happens when you have, those are businesses, and they tend to have destination customers that go there for a reason. But there are also other people that come for other reasons and will enjoy the local businesses, which we have also come to appreciate and enjoy. So I would hope that over time, those local businesses would recognize this to be a good thing. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, other than to mention that with regard to the economic benefits, obviously we think they are quite significant. We are trying to be very accommodating on those fronts. I think you have tremendous leadership on your local services. We've met with the fire department, the police department. We've gotten to know their concerns. We're happy to address them, because I think they each want to run great departments, and we want to help them do that. And as we said, this isn't about the minimum standard. This is about making Milford great. And, you know, with regard to those services and the citizens, you know, we want this to be a very thriving place so that we can say, look what we helped Milford create along with the citizens of Milford. So I just wanted to say that I do think that we've done, relative to our competitors in this process, I do think that we've done a great deal more work. I think that's a tribute not only to our side but to this board, because you've asked for that and you've demanded that, and your advisors have held us to that. And I think it's to the betterment of all of us. And I know we had a lot of ground to make up, but I think as a result of this process, we've come a great deal along those lines. And from our perspective, we feel very good about where we are. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to my partner, Mr. Reardon, to address the questions.
So our hope was that we have two documents out there that haven't really been discussed in open forum. So we have our response to Casino Free Milford, and we have our recent response to the Selectmen on traffic. So we could either do a couple things. I could go through those responses, or we could just open it up to your questions.
Is there a preference by the board?
I think he should go first, and then if we have questions.
Good.
Okay, so why don't we just go through the Casino Free Milford response? So first and foremost, a lot of work obviously went into their document, and I appreciate all the effort that went into it. But as stated in our memo, we think there are fundamental things that are kind of either misinterpreted or mistaken in the memo. We just wanted the opportunity to address that. What we probably won't do is go through the traffic and water and sewer, since those already have been discussed at length. Probably just like to touch on the issues that haven't been so far. So if we advance through the memo,
Mr. Reardon, what page are you going to?
I'm on the let's see,
Upper left?
page 5 of 7.
Just so we can follow along.
Yeah, so the first is and then we'll probably go through this on Wednesday, but what we wanted to do is, in a more intimate format, just address some of your comments in a different setting. So really wanted to just clarify a few things on the jobs creation. We hope to, as part of the host community agreement, compile a specific list of all the positions that are available and the salary ranges for those. So a lot of the questions that came up was, we keep mentioning the average salary of $50,000 per year. And we reference benefits package and things like that. I've come to find out that at Foxwoods down in Connecticut offers a pretty significant benefits package, far better than I get at my work. So what we want to do is make sure that gets out in the public forum. So we'll be documenting the jobs list in a salary range as well as the benefits package. Then we wanted to touch base really quickly on the property values. So as most people know here, Milford is a fairly developed community, not a whole lot of open opportunities for new residential development to supply a new property base. So from our position, that supply is pretty much set within Milford, and that with an increase in jobs, an increase in activity, an increase in all the things that come with economic development, that demand is going to increase as well. So we see that as a positive benefit, that with a constrained supply, will only end up with higher property values. Another question came up about Milford Town Services. Like most commercial developments, Foxwoods doesn't use a whole lot of services, no trash pickup, no snow plowing, nothing like that. So as far as normal draws on the public resources and public funds, we don't see that as being a big need on our part. So one of the questions brought up is, what are the other costs that we will bear, the town will bear as a function of our development? So aside from the specifics that we talk about, the traffic, the water, the sewer, all those very specific exercises, we haven't identified any other significant needs that the project would draw from the town. So even the school-age children, this project does not carry school-age children itself, but we understand that as part of the economic development that it brings, that it will bring people that will have kids that are either filling positions at the resort or filling jobs that are created by the resort. So we understand that, and I think we've got something in our package for Wednesday to address that. There was also a question about zoning and density and the character of Milford. This site is currently zoned for a business park use, so a commercial use. And so it's as far as our consistency with that use, generally, we're a commercial project, although it's a unique commercial project, it's still commercial, so we didn't see that as a big deviation from the underlying zoning. So as far as the commercial character of our project, we don't see that as changing the underlying fabric of the community. As far as ecological impact is concerned, we've really done our best to try and balance the environmental concerns of the site versus the development needs of the project. Even to the point where we really tried to make that upper site work, and it took an uninvolved party to kind of take those, that make it clear to us that the direction that we should be going. So our conversations with Army Corps and with your consultants made us realize that, yeah, what we were doing was not the least environmentally impactful. We had to take a look at the lower site, and it's turned out to be that clearly is the least environmentally impactful. On the next page, on page 7 of 7, absentee management. So we talked real briefly about, I think the issue came up was that with a project or with a casino in Connecticut and a project in New York and one here in Massachusetts, can an entity conceivably manage those 3 projects? I work for a company that has about almost 200 offices worldwide. We manage all our companies, we manage all our offices. It just seems like 3 like businesses of the same type of use in this Northeast would not constitute absentee management.
Plus, the project would have 100% self-contained management from the property general manager down. All of the property level management would be 100% dedicated to Foxwoods, Massachusetts. And we usually demand that all of our senior leaders live within the area.
So that was in a short form, our responses to the Casino Free Milford document. So if you have any questions on that, we can go to that, or we can go through the traffic responses to your comments.
Yeah, so I'm confused by the agenda items that we established. It's not necessarily your fault, so I don't want to suggest that. I'm looking for, I guess, my understanding when we set the agenda was, well, let me think. Let me go back to it, because we had talked about. Rick, help me with the 2 items that were initially brought up.
Initially, and I think we talked about an update on where the mitigation was and where we are.
That's right.
Where you
Where-
are.
with the
excuse me,
gaming
in the
in-
mass gaming process.
Right.
Is that part of tonight's agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Bob Allen, what we had wanted to do was just to provide you with a brief response publicly to the Casino No group that was here.
Yeah, no issue.
Right, so that was the first part, and then I know you and Selectman Murray had some traffic questions. We wanted to make sure that you received the responses, see if you had any follow-up, and then I was going to get into just briefly some of the timeline of the Gaming Commission and where we are in that timeline. Just
Yeah.
wanted to give you the opportunity to.
Why don't we do this? Why don't you get us the answers to our questions separately, rather than take up tonight's meeting to go over all the questions, because I think I had 11 that evening on traffic alone. And I don't want to go through all of them this evening, and everybody else's. There were also members of the public that needed some responses as well. So why don't you get that to the board, get that to the town administrator?
I think
But-
you have them now, Mr. Chairman, correct?
I don't personally. Do you, Rick?
I don't have those. I have some individual citizen ones.
So, in following along with the agenda, I want to give you latitude. I'm not trying to restrict, I'm just
No, I
trying to be
understand.
efficient. And at the same time,
We appreciate that.
yeah, why don't we go through what you have from a gaming perspective?
Sure.
And then, anything else that you want to bring
Why
up?
don't you talk about timing? and then-
Yeah, just so you understand timing and you understand where we are, the investigative process, just from a gaming commission standpoint, they are in a sort of hurry-up mode on their end. They're doing what they do in other jurisdictions that take 2 years. They're doing it in about 6 months. So we've gone through the Phase 1. They're wrapping up interviews on the Phase 1. The Phase 2 process has basically begun. There's a number of issues that we'll have to respond to, but there is a need to enter into the community host agreement before we get too far into that. The Phase 2 is due by December 31st. There'll be suitability hearings, any questions about any of our applicants, that'll be in mid-August. The host community agreement, if we were going to proceed in this community, would really need to be drafted and agreed to by the end of August. The town referendum, that would put the town referendum on probably the first Tuesday or somewhere around there in November, which would give the board adequate time to notice it, and we could certainly work within the timing. The submission of the RFA 2, Phase 2, would be due on December 31st, 2013, with the Category 1 license as of now being awarded on April 2014. So if you go back from the April 2014, that's where we stand. I do want to reiterate for the board, I've been going to a lot of the gaming commission's meetings. What you have requested of us far exceeds what has been requested from pretty much any other community and any other applicant, which we're fine with, because I think it did make this process, made our application a lot stronger.
Easier, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to make the Phase 2 a lot easier, because right now, all the other applicants are struggling. Phase 2 is probably going to be about a 1,000-page document.
I think part of that is the nature of some of the communities and some of their, I want to say, economic decline. The fact is, you're not in an Everett where they have a 200-acre Monsanto dump site. Springfield, right?
Money was first.
Yeah, it was
Everything
always,
else was second.
yeah, exactly.
With you, it was the opposite.
Exactly.
Show us that you can handle it here, and then we can talk money.
And that's good, because if we're fortunate enough to move forward, we think we'll have a much better result than those places that might be a little bit more desperate. But
Agreed.
The purpose of the agenda item is actually very simple. It's just, we understand that we have to come to an agreement, and Milford has to be happy with what we're doing. But we also, in our minds, have to be prepared to compete against 2 other projects. And we can't sort of win the battle and then lose the war. So if we're so fortunate that we're successful in coming to an agreement, we want to make sure that we're in good stead to stack up against the other 2 projects so that we can actually win that license. So we just want everyone to be cognizant of some of the other deadlines that we have if we are fortunate enough to get through this.
And the only other comment is that right now, as a matter of right, it's not, the casino would not be allowed on that property without a rezoning. So I just asked you, and I know you were aware of that.
I understand that, yes.
So
that is definitely
it's just
part of our
another
plan.
hurdle.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Local hurdle.
Right. But again, if we are successful in getting through all of this, like I said, it'll make us a better, healthier project. So it's a good process, but we have to keep in the back of our minds some of the other deadlines that we will face if we do get through it.
Sure. And, okay, so, sorry.
Mr.
Was-
Chief, may I just ask Attorney Allen a question?
Sure, please.
Attorney Allen, give us some meat. You said investigatory, the gaming commission is looking at this, looking at that. What are they looking at? What type of information do you have to provide them, right? And then, how is it done? I mean, are they looking at how many people, anybody ever been arrested, type of backgrounds?
It is,
financial, so what
they-
type of-
I think you mean for just for suitability.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've actually been licensed in 7 jurisdictions, so the process that Massachusetts is going through is not dissimilar to what other jurisdictions would do, but it is very thorough and very complete. So they will analyze every aspect of your life from from where you went to grade school all the way through your current job. They'll ask for references. They'll look at a minimum of 5 years, sometimes 10, financial information. So all of your tax returns, all of your brokerage statements, any investment that you might have made within the last 10 years. They'll look at all of your credit card statements over that time period. They'll ask for canceled checks over that time period. If you have any, loans to family members or relatives or anyone you tried to help out, they'll get scrutinized pretty heavily. Obviously, they'll look for any type of criminal activity or anything that you might have done that's fraud or deceivious. But my experience is that it's all about the applicant. The onus is on the applicant to basically come clean on everything, and having been in this business now for 20 years, you learn not to do certain things. So if there's a crazy investment that someone might want me to, I'll just say, it's not even worth it for me to do, to have to go through it. So you do adjust your lifestyle accordingly. But basically, that's what it is. It's a very fair process. You know, sometimes you'll get a younger investigator that's watched a little bit too much CSI, you know, so you'll have to go through that. But it's a pretty fair, complete process. But basically, they're trying to assess you from a personal and financial standpoint.
If I could just ask a quick follow-up on that? So who exactly goes through that process? Is it every individual who's going to be part of this project?
Yep.
Is it the corporate entities that are going to be
Yeah.
part of it?
Typically what it is anyone that has any significant, they can call anyone. They have a right to call anyone that they think has an influence on the business. But usually it's any significant owner. Usually the demarcation line is 5% or more. But if you're under 5% and they have a suspicion of something, they will ask you to apply. And any significant person on the management level. So anybody they think will have influence over the business, such as myself, if I'm not necessarily an owner, I'm a decision maker, will get called. If I had an executive committee, that committee typically, certain members would have to get licensed if they're deemed to have, you know, influence over the business. And then anybody that has an ownership stake.
And so you've submitted names of, I guess, prospective
Yep.
management
Yes.
team that, okay.
Yeah, for example, Alan Kronberg is somebody who's submitted a license, given that, you know, he's considered to be part of the management team. And then as we bring people on, you know, at Foxwoods, for example, we have many people that get licensed. All of our managers get licensed to some degree, and there are different levels of licensing. So if you're a vendor, you have to go through a licensing process. You know, when we contribute to a charity, that charity has to submit forms to be licensed. So it's incredibly complete. And I know one of the things we're going to address with hiring is, you know, what we do on the hiring side. And I think you'll see that we're very, very thorough in terms of the background that we do before we even bring somebody on, because we know they'll be subject to that. So anybody that we think might have a problem with licensing, we would not consider in the hiring process.
Bill?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
So, Scott, this investigatory process, who does, is it accountants? Is it the state police?
Yeah,
Who-
it
what type
depends
of
by
people are looking at
jurisdiction.
stuff?
So in Louisiana, it is the state police, for example. So sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But usually it's the, and in some cases you have a commission and a division. Like in New Jersey, they had a gaming commission and then a division which enforced the acts of the commission. So the division actually did the investigative work. But typically it's people with some kind of law enforcement or investigative background.
We should
and
know,
they work-
right? This is Massachusetts, so
Yeah.
who's gonna do it in Massachusetts?
well,
It is a consulting law firm for the Mass Gaming Commission. When Scott goes into the room for his interview, there'll be about 5 people in the room with him. One person focused on financial, you'll have the state police there, you'll have somebody with an accounting background, and then you'll have 2 or 3 from the legal people, and one who's a straight-up investigator. But there'll always be somebody from the Mass State Police there.
And this information is available on the website. I've read it, so
Yeah.
And it's also some of the process they've used to vet some of the slot parlor.
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay.
I believe July 26th or 27th, I could be wrong on the date, but I'm pretty sure that's the date that the commission has decided that they will release any requests for information that have been sent to the commission. So I believe that's the date that they'll be releasing. They spent a lot of time making sure, because there's so much personal information involved in here, going through the redacted version and what will be provided to the public. But I believe they picked either 26th or 27th to make that information public.
So,
Okay.
and the Gaming Commission, I think, has done a good job. I think the legislature's done a good job. So what are they looking for? At the end of the day, to pass this particular,
The Phase 1?
yes, what
They
are they
have a certain
looking for?
suitability. I mean, it's character, it's all the things that you would want in a casino operator. They vet it out to make sure that that person meets the qualifications.
So Bob,
It's all
local,
spelled out in the
when
legislation.
we hire people or we do certain things, there's a Cory in Massachusetts. So in the Cory.
This is nothing like
Okay.
that. This
All right, I
is
just wanna-
times
okay.
50.
So when the Cory comes back and there's a red flag, then there's a problem. So what type of process? So if they're not satisfied
Right.
with something, or
So-
if they see something,
They'll-
what happens?
They'll usually give you a heads up that we've identified a problem. Typically, they'll give the applicant the opportunity to withdraw, because one of the questions you have is if you've ever been denied a license. So there are some jurisdictions, for example, that accept some people and some that won't, you know. So they will typically give the applicant the opportunity to withdraw. If the applicant decides not to, and this recently happened in Nevada, they'll rule, and if the person doesn't meet their standards, they'll deny a license.
They'll go through what's called a suitability hearing, which I actually
Okay.
think next Thursday is one of the first
Yeah.
ones the Gaming Commission's going to have with a slot parlor. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it, but it's a full evidentiary hearing.
But like anything else in the casino business, you have privileges, not rights. So no one has a right, and you can be denied a license for whatever reason the commission feels appropriate.
And Mr. Chairman, one other thing I want to bring up, one of the reasons why the Everetts and the Bostons can talk money first and mitigation later is the Phase 2 is so complete, and you have to prove to the Gaming Commission that you can meet these mitigation needs. Your consultants all have certain portions to fill out. So everything you've seen at our meetings, vetted, finalized, needs to be part of this Phase 2. So this, when you said you made it easier, you did. You really made it easier because we've done a lot of the stuff that the other applicants haven't done early on in the process. So I think the Everetts and the Bostons are relying on, hey, listen, they have to prove it to the Gaming Commission that they can meet the mitigation needs. So there is a sort of secondary layer that we have to satisfy. We don't have to just satisfy you that we can handle it. We have to satisfy the Gaming Commission that we can handle it. Traffic, all the issues that have been concerned here, all the issues we have been talking about. So that was a reason for our presentation, just to kind of give you a sense, because we jumped right in. Granted, our own fault, we came in a little bit late, and we jumped right in, and we never really talked too much about the process. So we wanted to have this chance to sit down and let you talk. And one thing that we really want to emphasize is that everything we've provided to you has been vetted by Sid's office, and, you know, Sid's not easy to get by. Sid pushes us hard, his consultants push us hard. But I think the key difference between our documentation and some of the other documentations you have received is everything we've provided you with has supporting evidence behind it. And we're very proud of that. And we're not here to trick you, and I think Scott was very upfront. If it doesn't work, we'll shake hands and say goodbye, but right now, we still think it works, and we would really like to get to the next step of the process.
Okay.
And we've enjoyed being here. You know,
Yeah.
and we like Milford a lot. We like the citizens. We want this place to be successful. I don't think we can, I know Milford is doing great, and it's a great tribute in this economy. You know, you see things like what's happening in Detroit, and you realize what a great job you guys have done. But, you know, you look in the future, and with, you know, a lot of money coming from the state and a lot of money coming from residents, is there a way that we can do something that eases that burden going forward that people would still be happy with? So I think there is a good economic opportunity for this town if we can pull this off.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Thank you
Appreciate it.
very
No,
much.
no.
Appreciate it.
Can we ask some questions?
Yep.
Sorry. Of course.
Okay. Dean, you have any questions?
Yeah, so in that process again, okay? So they ask for all kinds of questions, all kinds of information.
Mhm.
And you started supplying that,
Yeah, we've given them that.
okay?
I mean, in my case, I'm fortunate because I've been through it
Yeah.
quite a bit, but for someone doing it new, it's just a logistical issue, collecting
So
all
when
that
you provide the
info.
information,
Yeah,
and they start looking over the information,
right.
do they give you feedback that,
Yeah.
okay,
They'll-
it's all right, it's not okay, there's
Mhm. If
a
they have
problem here?
they'll ask questions. It's very interactive. If there's something they don't understand, they'll ask questions. You know, what was this loan? What was this investment? I'm missing 1 out of 700 financial broker statements. Can you get it to me? Stuff like that. But usually what they do is they try and make sure they have everything and it's complete, and then that they understand everything that they don't understand, and then they'll come out and interview you based on what they've researched.
And then, Scott, at the end of the day, when everything's all done and they've vetted everything, what do they do? Is there like
They'll
some type of
Finding of
yeah,
suitability.
they'll find
finding that everything is okay or satisfactory or
Yeah,
whatever the case may be?
They'll say that you're suitable for a license, and if you actually are awarded that license, then you'll be a licensee. But you can't be awarded a license if you're not suitable, if your whole team is not suitable.
And then, as the chairman said, in those cities, it's basically the mayor and that makes all the decisions. So in
Well,
this particular
yeah,
case,
but-
we have town meeting, we have
Yeah,
residents. So
right.
it's a better process. It's
Yeah.
a real New England
No, it's a
type of-
different government. It's
style.
a more complete form of government.
Yeah, and I think Congressman Delahunt would understand that very well. I must say that that the individual with without the jacket, I think, has done a very good job working with town officials in Milford.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's,
it's excellent.
I'm surprised he's not divorced by now, but
How do you know he isn't?
I think he's still, I think he's still
Sitting at home. Have you called home recently?
If it comes to that, the casino loses.
These are the type of questions you get in the
It's
licensing
important to
process.
say that.
Right,
It
yeah.
is fair, and he's done a
Yeah,
good job.
we-
and he's-
we
I know
appreciate that.
all the officials I've talked to, he's come across in a very scientific, comprehensive way,
Yeah,
and I think he's a person of integrity, and that's important, because
yeah,
if that were not the case,
yeah.
you know, it would have been
No,
stopped a long time ago.
I absolutely agree, and look, we were fortunate to have Mr. Reardon join our team. We thought he was a real, blue chipper from the start, and he's been everything we've asked for. So if this doesn't happen, it won't be through lack of effort in doing things in the right way.
Just a couple of more minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Take your time.
One thing I would like to have is the decision by the Army Corps of Engineers, because of the vernal pools, that it can't be placed in that particular area, has to be moved down. Can we get that in writing from the Army Corps of Engineers so we can share it with our town officials?
I've spoken with Karen Adams specifically about that, because when the issue came up, I was a little concerned about presenting it as something that the Army Corps forced us to do, and she was,
Yeah.
she said, no, tell them we told you to, and they've opened a file for it, so it's part of the Freedom of Information Act, so you can get access to that information. I'll see if I can get something from her speaking to that.
Because from past experience, Sean, I think, the Army Corps of Engineers, they're all over the world, and they do great work. So I think whenever we've asked them for something, they've always supplied us with the documentation, the information, whatever it is. And I still can't believe, I don't know what type of mitigation process was done, but I still can't believe that, working with the Army Corps of Engineers, that the mitigation on being able to do something on those upper levels, even with the vernal pools, I just can't believe that. I don't know if it was a case where you went in and they said, well, it's not gonna work, this and that, but I don't know if there was give and take, if there was information. Because the mitigative process is a strong one. I think they're very reasonable.
It is, and if it came down to the choice of whether or not, if, say, for example, the upper site was the only part of the site that we had control of, there's a path to permit that upper site. The challenge comes in when you're, as part of that application process, you're required to do what's called an alternatives analysis. So you have to demonstrate that what you're proposing is the least environmentally impactful. And it became immediately apparent that with the lower site as an option, there's no way we can meet that standard. So, and that's really what the discussion revolved around. There was never a point where they said, no, we're not gonna let you do the project. It's just a question of what you're gonna have to do to mitigate it. And they have very, very good provisions for monitorizing mitigation, so there's always a way to come up with a this for that relationship. The challenge becomes in proving that you're doing the least environmentally impactful project, and with the lower portion as an option, it was clear in their mind that was the least environmentally
So we'd like to have something in writing,
Sure.
okay, Sean?
Yep.
Now, Wednesday, we're gonna be talking about what, from your perspective?
Wednesday, we're going to be talking about employment and sorry.
Should be social and financial
Yes.
Right.
impacts. Right?
Yep, and also, I think we're going to give a
And
report
we
on
have-
Police,
property
fire,
values, right?
schools.
And we have the consultants, our consultants and all that have also vetted the information that you have obtained.
Correct. I think we'll start with the answer, questions from the public about,
Right.
about sewer or water?
Sewer, right.
Water.
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 Right. And then social impacts. And yes, the consultants have
Yeah.
talked. We had a phone conversation earlier today to kind of outline the meeting and actually add to some of the slideshows, some consistent themes that Chairman Buckley has been requesting about just showing where both sides are on one slide rather than have to
Right.
flip back and forth
Right.
with two fingers, yeah.
If I had to tell you one area that's still, there are some areas, I think you've given us the information, and I'm glad that the water company manager is reviewing everything. I think as far as water, he's the guy that has to say if everything is done, then the Milford Water Company can provide water. So that's most important, that's
Right, I
imperative. The sewer, John Magnini and the sewer commissioners. But the one that's still, that I lose sleep over, is the traffic. I think traffic, and I know, Sean, we've had discussions on that, on the traffic. You know, the trip generation, the signalization, 15 seconds here, 20 seconds there, if that's done, mitigated, whatever. I can't get my arms around it, okay, because it's such a, I think that's probably the most important determining factor. I think, and the chairman has, worked with Attorney Valani to set up all the meetings, but I think on the traffic, it's so important that we should probably, working together, when I say we,
Yep.
is that, I think that has to be looked at again.
Yep.
Closer. What does it mean? I think a lot of people have questions. I think we have questions. I mean, I've read this book 15 times now. And it's,
God bless you.
and it's numbers, and it's and sometimes the reports are a little bit different. Whether it be sometimes it's rounded off to 70% or 263, 273. So, but I just want to know what it means. Like, we're not going anywhere, the three of us. All right, and so, looking down, I just want to make sure that we have all the information, that the police chief, town engineer, town planner, that we look at the connector road, we look at 16, Wendy's, that intersection, that we know exactly what it means. And that when it says like 38 cars or whatever, and I remember the first night when the gentleman talked about that number, and I think, people laughed because, it was probably, whatever the case may be. But it was really something that, well, how can you say that? Is it really, even if it's real, even if it was, a true assumption, it's almost like incredulous that it can't be.
Right.
So, for me, I need some more time, I need some more information. Things have to be summarized more, condensed more, with charts, showing 495, the connector road, exit 19, at 21, whatever the case may be. And if we have, let's say, on a Friday night at 16-109, if we have 200 cars, let's say, okay, between those peak hours, with the casino traffic, what would it be? An explanation, justification on the data and all that. The consultants working together, is there something else that can be done? Is it something else? Because you came up with a couple of pages of mitigation in those areas.
Right.
Is there something that we missed? Is there something else that can be done? Okay? Because, this is a big thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are fearful, and, the opinions vary from, you go different areas, and a lot of people say, hey, it might be a good thing, and then other people say, geez, what about this, what about that? And, it's okay, and that process is good.
Right.
Because if it were just one way, then that wouldn't be in the best interest of. So as far as traffic goes, I just need more information. I think I just have to be assured that, this is right, it's accurate, it's valid, reliable, and there's anything else that can be done, hasn't been thought of, and we have to, put that down on paper, and then,
Right.
and then we'll make our own determination.
So a couple things that we're doing, by no means are we done with traffic. So it's a living process. So a couple of things that we've done to date is we've responded to all the selectmen's comments from the traffic meeting. That's gone back and forth between us and Shefsky and Furlick and the folks from Ty and Bond to make sure that it's vetted through the same process that the original traffic study did. So you should be getting that shortly. We've also thought it'd be a good idea to work with Rick and Vonnie as your two best resources. We said, well, listen, let's just sit and go through the whole traffic study so that we don't have access to that they do. So if we can kind of give them a guided tour of the traffic study, show them where all the information is, that if you have a question, it's a little bit easier for them to find it. And also
The police chief also.
Yep,
Town
and we'll
planner.
respond to every question. So we just submitted back to, I think it was Mr. Bill Smith, submitted an email with some suggestions on how to process the information and show the information. So we've got a response to that. We've sent that back to Shefsky and Furlick today. I think the important thing is that everybody's going to understand this differently. So the only thing we can do is respond to every question that you have, because you might see things differently than Selectman Murray and Chairman Buckley. So, you know, if there are any questions, we'll try and give Rick and Vonnie the resources and the understanding that they can answer your questions, and we'll try and hit every one point on it we can. We've also done, I think it was Selectman Murray that brought up the comparison to as-of-right zoning. So we've looked at an office park development on the parcel and what kind of traffic that would generate. Put together a quick little memo, a quick little sketch that presented it in that context, so hopefully that'll shed a little bit of light on it. I think it's just we got to do everything. So if there's any questions, if there's any issues, just let us know and we'll do our best to address them.
It's an interesting thing, you know, because a 24-hour facility is a different animal. You know, Foxwoods, you know, 8.5 million square feet, 40,000 people a day, is accessed by a single lane road that goes 5 miles in either direction. A single lane road for all of Foxwoods, you know, and it's just the 24-hour nature. You know, we run shifts that start at all different times. We stagger them as much as we can. And I think customers, you know, have different lifestyles and different times that they frequent the casino and come at, you know, at different times. So it's not intuitive. I know what you mean. You say that couldn't possibly be. If I ever went to Foxwoods on a Friday at 5, I'll probably sit in traffic for 2 hours. But you don't. So it's just it's one of those things that you kind of, you know, learn over time. But we're committed to doing whatever we can to try and get people to understand it.
Because I've told you, Sean, I've told you several times, when I leave my office on 109 and I go home, you know, like on maybe a Thursday, sometimes Wednesday, Friday, it takes me 35 minutes to get home.
Right.
Okay, so I just want to know what it means. You know, what's the extra thing going to be? And then, like I did last week, and I respect you, I said, I want to hear from Dave Condrey. You know, I want to hear from our consultants. Like, you know, I believe what you're saying, the reports and all that, top professionals, but I want our consultants to tell us. We looked it over. What are the areas of disagreement, the areas of agreement, and if there's something is missing? And I think that's most important. So as far as I am concerned, the traffic is something I'm not comfortable with yet.
Yep. And I can understand that, because this is a really unique project. I can't think of any other project that, for all intents and purposes, has, we were fortunate enough to have Route 16 there, and it provided us a way to get access to and from the site directly from the highway. I can't think of a single other project in the state of Massachusetts that has that. I mean, even the South Weymouth Naval Air Station, that comes through local roads. So it's a unique project that it's hard to put in context with anything else. So when you see these numbers, they look artificially low because you've never seen a project like it. But there really isn't another project like this one. This is a singular opportunity. So.
And if the need be, I've spoken to Attorney Villani many times. I mean, if you have to meet 6 hours a day upstairs with all our people going over this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then providing us the information in the summarized way, the tables, the charts, then you have to do it.
Yeah, without question.
And this is what I want
Yeah.
as one person on this board.
Yep.
But I also want to say, you know, Sean, I appreciate your work, and I think whether talking to Ricky or Vonnie or anybody else, I mean, someone calls you, you return a phone call in 5 minutes, and that's important, and that's what, you know, we need. And but the traffic to me is a big nut, and need more information. Okay,
We'll keep giving it to you until you don't.
that's all, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I took
That's
too long.
okay. No. Brian?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I've got a few questions, and I guess, Sean, if I could go over this, the response report to you, and what I was trying to figure out is the water demand estimates, because I understand, you know, the concepts or the proposals you have going forward to maximize water capacity and water usage, but I think trying to get a firm understanding as to what you estimate your water demand to be is important. And I understand how you've distinguished what the Casino Free Group had done in terms of calculating demand, but I get confused when I read the summary paragraph on the top of page 3 and then try to compare it with attachment A, which I take it is taken from the Suffolk Downs proposal, because we've talked about wastewater generation at Suffolk Downs is set at .18 MGD. Is that, am I reading that? That's at the,
Wastewater or water?
oh, that's wastewater, I'm sorry. But the same thing develops. I'm trying to find those numbers on both the water and the wastewater as showing up on the charts on Exhibit A. Because the Suffolk used the wastewater projection to
Yes.
to come up with their water estimate.
Exactly. So they put either a 10% or 15% premium on the water.
Yeah.
So in Massachusetts, we have Title V, which gives us referenceable wastewater generation estimating criteria for determining how much wastewater will come from a project. Then we have good data that says how much water is a function of that number, and we can extrapolate one from the other. In our project, we have the unique opportunity of having a similar facility that's been in operation for 6 years, the MGM Grand down in Connecticut. So very similar mechanical systems, very similar breakdown in uses. So we have a rare opportunity to look at actual data. So we use that for generating our numbers, so we feel pretty strongly that they're accurate. The big thing there is Title V doesn't really give a good handle on mechanical loads. So in Connecticut, almost 25% of our load is mechanical systems. So it's really where Title V falls a little bit short. So we feel more comfortable when we were in negotiations with the water company using hard data rather than using Title V.
And Sean, by the mechanical systems, you mean the HVAC, the cooling?
Exactly, cooling, principally, yes.
And that doesn't return to the wastewater system?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And what's important, it's a very dynamic use too. So we have probably a 30% delta, 40% delta in our February usage versus our August usage. So it's important for Milford Water Company to have that dynamic information in order to make good decisions on what they're going to do.
In broader terms, I know the reports had referenced 5 other development projects that the town has permitted at this point.
Correct.
Yeah.
The traffic reports, yeah.
Okay. Was that taken into account in the water projections at all?
No, it wasn't, because we were just,
Okay, but-
it was just a projection of our demand.
Right, okay.
So unlike traffic, where there's a network and all this nuanced relationship between where traffic is generated and how it gets to the highway system, your water's a little bit different than that. It's more of a mass balance exercise.
Okay. And so how were those 5 developments factored into the traffic projections?
So all of those 5 developments have MEPA filings, which have pretty detailed traffic information. That traffic information is all put into what we call our no-build case. So when you see the 2023 no-build, that's assuming all the background growth, all these other projects get done. What happens to the network even before our project is added to it? So,
Okay.
so the term no-build means we're not building our project, but all that other background growth, all that other project growth is put in there.
Okay.
So,
all right.
so it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for me. I've read these things for years. I'm not a traffic engineer, but the data is comprehensive, and the people that usually look at these are so focused on traffic that it becomes kind of an exercise in just number generation.
Right,
So,
right.
so most of the audience, like Mass DOT, I mean, they know this stuff even better than we do. So when we're writing, they're usually the audience that we write to. So when we talk about Route 16, when we talk about 495, it's very important that we have to do things the way they're used to seeing them first, and then we can color them however anybody wants them, or restate them however anybody needs it. But that first foray of the traffic study, very important that it has to be exactly the way Mass DOT expects to see it.
And you've had, what, 2 meetings with DOT?
2 meetings with DOT. One of those meetings was with Federal Highway as well.
Okay, and we received a memo today through Representative Fernandez from David Mola. Actually, it came in on the 19th. And it talks about, it basically summarizes the meeting that you had. And they talked about preparing a traffic study with accurate estimates for trip generation based on vehicle counts for comparable regional facilities. And that's in essence the process you used.
Correct. Twin River and Foxwoods.
And you adjusted for the unique characteristics of their site. So Did you find those meetings helpful in terms of putting together the information that you presented to us?
Most, that's pretty standard in terms of, we've done hundreds of MEPA filings, which will include all this traffic data in it. So we know what DOT expects. We work with them all the time. The big takeaway from those is the scope and scale of the highway improvements. So as you can imagine, as the principal caretakers for 495, if we propose something and it seems like a good idea to us, it better be a good idea to them. So even in that first meeting with Mass Highway, the general tone of that discussion was positive, and it was a more limited highway improvement. It was only until we met with Federal Highway that it became what you see now. So I mean, that was the big takeaway in those meetings is what exactly do you guys expect us to do with the highway system in order to make it an approvable project for you? Because again, we're talking about uncharted ground here where
Right.
we have a new connection to interchange, or new connection to 16. It provides access to a site, so there's a lot of nuance there that we had to make sure that we were working in the right direction.
And he talked about that also at the second meeting with the Federal Highway people, including reconstruction of a portion of Interstate 495 as mitigation for the project and the addition of the interchange with the collector distributor ramp system.
Correct. An important thing there is, for Federal Highway, this is a tiny project. So they come in and they have no qualms about saying what they expect, which was great. So they aren't tied to the legislation. They aren't tied to the process at all. They're sort of like Army Corps. They're separate from the process, and they're empowered by federal regulations. And so they frankly, it's easy for them to say no, and it's easy for them to tell us what they want.
So essentially, we would be adding 2 lanes of travel in both directions for a 2 mile or so distance.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Similar to, well, it was told to me by the former town engineer, similar to the Lowell Connector.
Very similar, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's a proven roadway. It works well, to the best of my knowledge.
Yep. And I think that was an interior widening too, so that was a widening to the median as well.
Okay. And as you come off the highway, then there would be the roundabout on the project site.
Correct, but it's the project site now, but
Yeah.
that will become a Mass DOT roadway. So that land, the land on that, in that roadway would likely either become property of the state, or it would have to become property of the state or property of the town.
Okay. And then and there would be, what, 2 turnoffs on the roundabout? One to go down to Route 16, and then one to continue and go into the complex?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And,
And the through movement, the principal movement will be down to 16, because we have to remember, this is a connector to Route 16 first.
right,
Then it's an access point for our site second.
right. But ideally, people are gonna be getting off on this interchange to go to the casino,
Correct.
and not necessarily Route 16.
Yeah, the vast majority will be going to the casino, yes.
Okay. And the intersection improvements for Route 16, what are you talking about there? Is it just basically signalization?
Signalization and a widening to add additional to left turn lanes and through lanes.
Okay.
And we've analyzed that intersection both under the 2023 build condition, and that's a high-functioning intersection. So in most cases, it functions at an A, which is uncharacteristic in this neighborhood, and also Friday PM peak hour, I think it functions as a C, which is still a high-functioning intersection.
Yeah, and you know, like Dean was indicating, and that's, and we've talked a little bit, that really is the tough thing, to really get a handle on what these vehicle counts mean in actual usage of the roadway. You know, I guess, according to the reports, 495 has 100,000 vehicles on a Friday and about 70,000 vehicles on a Saturday. And then we're looking to add upwards of, what, 25,000, 26,000?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and in the information that we sent to Sid's office, there's a figure that shows, kind of puts those numbers on a plan, because what's a little bit misleading is when you look at a trip from our site or to our site, there's 2 trips for every coming and going. When you count the highway volume, it's really a series of trips to the site and a series of trips away from the site. So you in comparing apples to apples, you have to almost double the volumes, because if you measure them the same way we're counting our trips, there's actually 2 trips for every one past the site, one coming to the site and one going from the site.
Okay.
And you'll see that hopefully a little bit clearer in the information that we provided to Sid.
I mean, it talks about Route 16 carrying about 16,000 vehicles on a Friday. I mean, that's what the tie and bond says.
Existing.
Existing,
Yeah,
yes.
right.
So, I mean, that's, I guess, a reference number. I mean, I know how Route 16 operates on a Friday, so, you know, I can judge what that amount of vehicles translates into. I do think it's important for you to do a cross-check analysis of what could be built there under existing zoning, because I think so many people are comparing this to woods.
Right.
And there's no question that at some point this land is going to be developed. The owner right now is taking steps to do that with the granite and the blasting, so there is going to be development there. I think one of the important points, and I think I saw, I'm not sure if it was in this rebuttal or what, the footprint of your development is going to be percentage-wise small. Is it 20% of the site?
I think that's a good estimate, yeah.
Okay, and then I believe I saw in here that the developer would be willing to place the vast majority of the other land under a conservation restriction to preserve it as open space.
Or deed it over to the town, whatever is the best situation for the town.
Okay.
Yeah. And on your question about the comparison to as of right, so that was
Yes.
submitted to Sid's office today.
Okay.
He's reviewed it, made some comments, we'll make edits to that and get it back to him in final form
So
tomorrow.
does that just have traffic information, or does that have development information as well?
It's a couple pieces, so just to make sure everybody's visualizing the same thing, it's a quick little concept sketch of a 1.5 million square foot office development on that parcel, which under zoning is not even close to what zoning would allow. I mean, the zoning, the FAR on that site is 0.5. So that would literally allow that many, 90 acres of square footage under the FAR number. So even the open space numbers, all that. So we put a quick little table together showing a zoning summary, how what we show on that sketch compares to zoning, showing that it's compliant with zoning, it meets the parking requirements. And then quick little representative traffic numbers from that project. So, and you'll see that, for 1.5 million square feet of office, you're looking at almost 18,000 trips a day. And with office, the majority of that is in the peak hours, in the AM and PM peak hours. So, much, much different in terms of when and how that traffic hits the network. And the
Right.
biggest change is there is no direct connection to the highway into those.
Right.
So even a tiny office building is going to put more traffic on Route 16 than this entire project would.
Right, and I understand that, and that's the flip side of this argument, you know? We don't want a casino, there's gonna be traffic, there's gonna be this, but at least we have the opportunity to try to mitigate the increased traffic. The traffic, I take it, is not gonna be coming at the same peak times where people go to work.
Correct.
And from an environmental point of view, I think that an office park is going to have much more impervious surface than this particular project would.
It all depends on their strategy for, I know on a pro forma basis, there's not as much support for parking structures, so they're going to maximize at-grade parking. I mean, the premium for structured parking is probably 4 or 5 times more expensive than at-grade parking, so.
I understand from a gaming perspective, surface parking is very valuable. Customers like surface parking a lot more than garage parking, but, we committed to do the garage for that purpose.
Sure.
But if that wasn't a factor, you'd always want to do surface parking because it's cheaper and customers tend to like it more.
Right. But you're committed to the garage on this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think we have 5 spaces at grade and they're all for buses.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the, I guess, dynamics in this process that was disconcerting to me was the fact that the location of the buildings got moved, and that really didn't get conveyed to us until after we had gone out and talked to folks in the neighborhood.
Right.
So, obviously, that's something that we're going to have to explore, think about. And there's clearly, I think, as there would be with any development, commercial, impacts to the neighbors. So if we were to enter into a host agreement, would Foxwoods be considering some sort of property value loss mitigation fund that certain neighbors could draw off, or if real estate persons could apply to?
Yeah, what I would say is whether it's a fund or what, you know, whatever it is, whatever vehicle we decide, we understand that those houses might be impacted. I'd say the jury's still out as to which way it'll go. I actually think that housing could be very valuable for people that work at the casino and want to be near the casino. So I think the jury's out. But obviously, if there's a financial impact, we're committed to working with those groups of people.
Okay.
And we would commit to that in any host agreement. We
Yeah.
actually been talking to a few individual residents that have some other interests that we can
Yeah.
certainly assist them with.
Okay. I mean, because, you know, as this process has been going, I think, you know, Bill, Dino, you know, I think a lot of people have been, at least myself, I guess, you're trying to think about the different segments, how they impact the town negatively, and what could be done to offset that, to allow people to make a decision on it. So the property value loss is clearly one. You know, the water, I think, was addressed in terms of the infrastructure improvements that you'd be looking to do. The traffic is, I think, still something that needs to be digested a little bit more. I'll look forward to the information that you provide for me to really get a sense as to, you know, what that means on a regular basis.
You know, Selectman Murray, not to interrupt, one of the things that was interesting as part of this exercise that we're going through on Wednesday night is your consultants or staff here provided documentation that since January, there's been about 13 home sales in the immediate casino area, all for 10 or 20% above the assessed price. So there hasn't been one sale that has been reduced with this, I'll call this gray cloud looming to some.
Looming on the horizon, sure.
So, I don't know if that's, it's something,
I mean-
it's one real number that we have, that's out there.
Yeah,
So at least it's a
yeah.
positive sign.
I mean, the concept of having easy access to the highway and being near what should be a very nice resort if we do it right is appealing to a lot of people, you know. So I like I said, I think the jury's out. You know, obviously, there's some that won't want to be near a casino, but there are a lot that will, you know.
Sure. I know, but I'm looking to basically establish something
But
for
we're committed if there's
folks
an
that's-
issue. We're committed if there's an issue to working with those
I'm
people.
thinking specifically, you know, the Zane Ridge or the Zane Circle, you know, certainly.
Fund, so if we do see a shortfall, they would be able to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the exact vehicle will be
Yeah.
yet, but we're committed to working economically with those people.
Right. And I don't even know if it's a vehicle that would have to be agreed upon at your end. I mean, I think it would be incumbent upon us to really come up with an amount of money that we think would be appropriate, and then the guidelines, the establishment could be done, you know, from the town.
Right, I understand. Yep.
The sewer, I see as a plus. There's no question about that. You're gonna be bringing sewer in there all the way up to the Holliston line, correct?
Yep.
People are gonna be able to tie into sewer. You've got some significant sewer upgrades. I think our facility can handle it. I mean, I didn't really get an answer from our consultant, but the reports that I read, I think we have the capacity at the plant. Yeah, so, you know, I don't really see that so much as an issue, but all of these different building blocks as this process has gone on is what I see as the foundation for trying to see whether or not this project is viable or not. And we're clearly coming towards the end of it. There is one other thing I want to ask about, and it was received from a resident today, and it was somewhat disturbing. It was a casino impact on the town of Ledyard, and this was done back in, I think, 2001. And you may have seen it from the mayor of Ledyard, and basically talking about the impacts that the casino had on Ledyard at that time. And clearly, the Connecticut issue is much different than the Massachusetts situation, because at least at that time, there were not mitigation funds sufficient to offset some of the problems that Ledyard was facing. You know, this document talks about, obviously, increased motor vehicle accidents, increased DUIs, the need for more emergency medical services, It appears that this was in reference to some sort of application to the state to try to increase the percentage of funds going to the town of Ledyard. So if this board were to contact the mayor of Ledyard today about what's going on down there, what could we expect to get back?
You know, our relation, I can only talk about what our relationship has been, and it's always been, you know, very positive. We've supported each other, we've helped them in times when they've had financial issues, we've helped their services. I think our record for things like DUIs and traffic accidents, given the volume we have, is very, very small. We haven't had any major, you know, fire incidences, you know, any major crime incidences. So I would hope he would say it's very positive, you know, and I'm not familiar with that report. I'm sorry. I'd be happy to look at it and give you that response. But, you know, all I can tell you is we've had very good relationships with the surrounding communities and the state.
Okay. So
As witnessed by, as recently as earlier in the year, the state allowed us to police ourselves, and they removed all state police from our facility because of our demonstrated track record. And I don't think they would have done that if they thought there was a major crime issue.
Sure. I want to thank you for the process going forward. And I agree, just keeping an eye on what's happening in other communities. Clearly, I think Milford is the most thorough of all the other communities, which, if it does go forward, would put you in good stead for Phase 2. But it's really something that I think that we have to do. It's a responsibility that we have, or at least that I see it that way, to try to get as much information as we can to see if, in fact, this could be a viable project.
Of course.
Yeah. But thank you very much for your information.
I'll go and then I'll.
Yeah, okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, thanks.
So the two members of the board hit on the topics that are probably most concerning to the community, myself, the water and traffic, and not a surprise to the proponents of the development, because you've dedicated an awful lot of time to that. But I just had a couple of questions. I think on page 3 of 7, the last paragraph, mentioned I&I at 4-to-1.
Correct.
And it's,
This predated our latest round of discussions with the sewer department.
all right, good, because I wanted to make
it's
sure
5-to-1.
I'm not getting confused again. It's 5-to-1. That's
Just a question of
DEP
timing.
requirements? Okay. All right. Got it. And, yeah, I had questions, and I asked the sewer department to look into it, and I'll let you know what they are. It's where you get that 1.5 million gallons of I&I, and the process for finding it is, right, because it's not necessarily all going to be picked up on the roads and the work that you're going to already touch.
No.
Right.
By no means.
By no
The
means.
good thing is the sewer department has done a lot of work.
They
on
have.
II. So, you know, the good news is they've identified it, we can go out and get it. It's still gonna be, I think Jack's term was aggressive, and I think it's our principal challenge from an engineering standpoint. That's gonna be the logistical exercise that is gonna be the biggest effort on our part, to find it and go get it and prove that you got it. The fortunate thing is we've got 2.5, 3 years
Right.
to get it, so that's.
But it could mean, in theory, it could mean 25 sites. Could mean
no.
8.
No, it's gonna be more than that.
Okay.
Yeah, way more than that, yeah.
All right, so there's a lot of construction there in order to get that improvement. Okay. Yeah, you know, Dino, I think appropriately raised the issue of traffic because, again, it's not intuitive for those folks who are not looking at traffic models every day, right? It's a difficult thing to process, and especially when we consider if we work the math, right? We're estimating 7 million vehicles annually, or 7 million visitors annually.
Correct.
Okay. And the thought of, and how so there's a lot of us who don't build homes. So when we talk to a builder about building homes, as an example, visualizing what's going to end up there when that room is built, it can be a difficult thing where somebody who works in 3D all the time just says, this is how it's going to look, have faith. The concept of a Lowell connector on top of, the 495 thing is I'd say a harsh, thought for a lot of people making the change, right? Adapting to that change and coming to understand the process.
Correct.
But I thought that 7 million visitors was a significant number. I see in the property values, is there not empirical data we can go get? And the reason why I say that, if I look at the Casino Free Milford's information, and I look at your information, what I hear a lot of, on both sides frankly, is we believe, they believe, he believes, she said, he said. And I'm hoping,
Yeah. Sorry, a week, I've viewed a draft report, we have to finalize, but we are going to present empirical data in
Okay.
I think 9 communities where there's been casino development and what the impact has been on
Okay.
residential property values.
I have yet to be able to look through a lot of
I agree.
this.
We're finalizing that analysis, and we'll be presenting that, I think, a week.
And I only say that because if I look on page 5 of 7, and it says, we firmly believe that. So, okay. And at the time, they presented National Association of Realtors. I look at it as, on its face, by the way, it wasn't a well-written report, but having said that, it looks to have credibility just by the the name that's tagged to it. So, that empirical data will be helpful.
And it'll be based on actual home sales in the periods following opening of casinos.
Okay.
He found some good comparables, I think you'll find.
Okay. Demand on town services. I'm not sure we're there yet, and I'm not sure the information I looked at today gets me there. So, I'll have some comments about that. I'm not sure why police and fire were some of the only departments looked at. I have concerns about our inspections department for the inspector's office. I have concerns about Board of Health. And without a complete list of all the departments, for example, and I've used this before, I don't expect there to be an impact on our Vernon Grove Cemetery department.
We hope not.
Right. And having said that, it would be so much easier if I had a list. And I knew which ones were omitted, which ones were intentionally omitted, and which ones, so I don't have to hunt those down.
And we have worked with your advisors on the.
And when you
impact
say
of-
Vernon Grove Cemetery and it says no anticipated impact, I get it.
No, I think, Chairman Buck, that's actually
Yeah.
an excellent point about,
Yeah.
it was covered, today in
Yeah.
our phone call. I think you see so much police and fire because that's really the significant monetary issues that come up, when you're talking about X number of policemen or firemen that needed to be added. It doesn't reach the level of X number of health inspectors that would need to be. But it sort of got brought up, and I think a number of department heads were in the discussions today about sort of a general administrative costs associated with the secondary impacts of this. Many of the things you talked about. So it was brought up, it is being addressed, and it will come up on Wednesday night.
But we'll provide a
But not
list.
to that level of detail, so I'm glad you.
Well, the
Yeah.
level
List of all the
the level of detail is, because we have to be careful, it's not just a bucket, right?
Of course.
Absolutely.
And because I think there's generally sometimes in some levels of departments who aren't clear about the full burden of a salary. So they might look at it and say, I'm increasing the hours of a part-timer by 5 hours. And the fact of the matter is, beyond the salary, it may drive it up an additional $15,000 because of benefits. So depending on where they are, we need to look at that. And ultimately, what I'd like is the town accountant to look at it and look at what the
Right.
full-time or part-time equivalency is and what its load is.
And a lot of those things were factored in, and perhaps we can use your annual report to go through the departments and see if there are some other ones that we may have missed in there.
Okay. because we've had an awful lot of pressure on our inspections department, our Board of Health, doing an awful lot in the community on the permits for buildings and apartments and that type of thing. We also have other issues happening that I'm going to mention later. But I'm not going to go through a lot, other than I'm wondering if I could just get an explanation for the paragraph on page 7 of 7, where it talks about buffers. I guess it's because I read it and I wasn't sure what I should walk away with. So maybe there's just a different way to try it. Take your time, because we're not in a rush. It's to do with the buffers.
Oh, when we're doing a concept plan for a site, the very first look at a site, what we'll do, we know there are regulatory limits to what we can do on a site, so we can't just with impunity go into resource areas and impact resource areas.
For wetlands as an example.
Correct. But we do have a right to go within the regulations, within the Wetlands Protection Act, to go right up to that resource area line. So what we'll do in consideration of that limit, assign a buffer off that to hardscapes or to other hard edges that we're relying on for our development, so that we leave ourselves
Some margin.
Some margin, exactly. Now, the vernal pool buffers become a little bit more murky because of the pervasiveness of that habitat or that resource area. But in general, the reason for assigning them was, we said, okay, we're going to keep our hardscape 100 feet away from those and 50 feet or 30 feet away from resource area boundaries, the wetlands, BVWs, things like that, to give ourselves that margin. So when you guys are looking at a project determining whether or not it's feasible, we've left some wiggle room in there for the buildings to shift or move without creating impacts to the areas that control our development.
Thank you for your clear explanation. It's probably the way I was reading it at the time I was reading it, but
Engineers
I
trying to
appreciate it.
write stuff. Yeah.
No, that was a clear explanation. I appreciate it. Dean, you had a follow-up you wanted to get to?
Just had a couple, on the question about the town accountant. I've spoken to him in the past couple of weeks. He's going to be providing us with some information. I think also Attorney Villani is working with all our town officials, besides police and fire, on what their needs are and all that, right, Rick?
Yeah, Judge, with the town engineer, we are working on that.
Okay. Bob, when you mentioned that the prices have gone up somewhere, whatever, where did you get that information from? Some book, or was it the assessor's office?
Assessor's office.
Okay. Can you provide Ricky with that information, the houses and with the valuation?
I believe the town administrator received it today.
Yeah, Priscilla did give it to me today.
The employment of the people at the casino is very, very, very important also. I think you've made a statement, we've done a lot of work with ICE, immigration was an issue,
Yeah.
okay? So, on the employment,
Mhm.
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Everybody, hypothetically, everybody who's hired at the casino will be a legal resident?
Absolutely. Has to be.
And how do you do that?
We do, well, can somebody slip through the cracks and do something fraudulent that we
Well,
don't
okay,
initially catch?
Right.
Sure. 3,000 employees. We do very thorough background checks. We look at, that we have everybody file out all their appropriate I-9s. We will work with ICE. We have internal investigators that do some form of investigation on everyone that's there. So you have to submit all documentation. We analyze all documentation. We
Social
check
security
references.
numbers, all that information?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we have a very, very thorough and complete process.
And that's one thing that the board will demand to be part of the,
Yeah.
once again, if
Yep.
it does go forward.
No, we do as thorough background check. I mean, my problem is sometimes finding enough people that can get through the process to bring them on, because we won't take anybody on that's at all a risk.
Okay. And the other thing I think we need is, I don't think I've seen anything, whenever we do a project, environmental, whatever, but I think we need something on paper so we can start looking at it. How is the place going to be built? The trucks, where are they coming from? What hours? Impact on the roads? Can we say that the trucks have to be on 495 and eliminate the trucks on those types of things? So we need information on that so that our people can start looking at that.
We can only hope we can get to that level of discussion.
But I think we need the information now.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Provide our hiring guidelines.
That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Bechara, to help you on that process, the state hasn't finalized. You've described the Foxwoods hiring process, right, and your criteria. And the state hasn't, just for clarity, the state hasn't finalized how they're going to license and their requirements.
Right.
And if it's true that, if it's, say, consistent with what other states do, at least from what I've read, and I've talked with Sid at length about this, it's folks that have financial background or issues within their financial background, late payments, anybody who might have had a DUI could be deemed unemployable. Foreclosures, those types of things. Bankruptcies.
I mean, for example, we were investigating a candidate, and we found out that he had a financial problem because he was underwater on his mortgage.
Sure.
And given where he was going to work, we viewed that as a sensitivity and a risk, because someone who's in financial difficulty might be tempted to do something.
Sure.
And we didn't hire that person despite all of his skill. So we it's, no one person is worth jeopardizing the enterprise over, is how we approach this. We did submit our hiring guidelines. What I'll say is those would be the minimum that we would apply here, so you could look at those and say they'll at least do this, and if the state would like us to do other things, we're committed to doing that as well.
Yeah, and it's funny because when, until I became aware of this, I was originally concerned that it was similar to other hotels.
Yeah, no, it's very
And
different.
where back of the house might be predominantly made up of folks who are not otherwise employable anywhere else. But since I've come to understand the casino operation and what the state requirements are frequently, that's no longer a concern of mine, and I appreciate you clarifying that, because I think it clears the air here as well.
If you were to stay at Foxwoods, hopefully you'd find that our housekeepers, for example, we view them as ambassadors to our guests. They interact with our guests. So they're people that are obviously conversant in English, they're trained to be friendly, and so that I think you'd find that that individual is not just somebody who we're picking up to come and make beds and pay a minimum wage to.
But they're also licensed, as is the custodian.
They're all background checks on everybody that gets a paycheck from us.
All right. All right, I don't have any more, and I'm sure it's been a long night for you guys sitting there.
It's okay. We
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
time.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you. See you. No, yeah, it stays right there.
Next for our
Take care. Bye-bye.
7:30 appointment. Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
Take care, Scott. Good seeing you. Tell, Sean, take care. Sean.
All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. The next item on the agenda is 7:30 meeting with Town Council Jerry Moody regarding treasurer-collector position.
Oh, thank you. Never got that.
Cleared the room, Jerry.
Yeah, you've done that many times,
Got
Jerry.
cooler,
over
by the
past
way, as
meeting.
soon as
Yeah.
everybody left. What a difference.
Sorry.
All right, Jerry, why don't we get started with you?
Sure. Yeah, of course, no mystery. I sent you folks a memo when Barbara first announced her moving on, setting out the system for replacement of the treasurer, and looking towards the possibility of making the position appointed. You, of course, since under the statute appointed the temporary treasurer. And the question that your board has to decide now is how to move forward. And of course, the first question, whether or not you want to move to appointed or whether you want to keep it elected. Presuming that you did want to move to appointed, which I recommend, frankly, unlike other positions, that treasurers has a skill level that's increasing. I think it's important to have somebody with a CPA or CPA-type skills. We were fortunate with Barbara, with her predecessor, Tony Rando. But, as we all know, the only qualification is to get the votes, to get elected. So I think this position, maybe unlike others, it is important that there be an ability to set standards and to hire the best possible treasurer for a community. So I believe that it should be appointed. As I suggested in a later memo, there's sort of two approaches to doing that if the board wants to go that route. One is to utilize the statute that would call for a town meeting vote in the fall, followed by on the ballot in the annual town meeting, or then obviously if that passed those junctures, then for a hiring process later. I recommend a different process, which would be special legislation in the fall, for two reasons. Number one, that would shorten the process, presuming the town meeting then in the fall wanted to make it appointed and voted it, would go to the legislature, which could be passed by the first of the year. So you could have it done a lot more quickly, but maybe just as important, you'd have the ability in that vote and in that special legislation to do something that you'd have to do anyway through special legislation, which is authorize a contract with the position. You'd want this position, like your town administrator, town council, fire chief, police chief, these professional positions, to have the ability to have a contract and set the terms by your board as the appointing authority. So if you followed that route and had this article for the fall town meeting for the special legislation, which we could include the ability to contract, if that were all voted affirmatively at that time, then all that could be in place, I would hope, maybe by the first of the year, by February perhaps at the latest. At least you wouldn't have to wait for the April town meeting and even subsequent to that for further legislation. So if the board, and it's obviously not for me to decide, but if the board decides to go that route, I think that's the cleanest, most streamlined way to do it, is that one vote in the fall town meeting followed by the legislation. And that's, I know you listed this as treasurer collector, but the two are different. You are going to face a question somewhere down the road on the collector. Everything I've said can apply in terms of the law. It can be done the same. I don't necessarily view the positions as the same. I mean, I think the treasurer is more of a managerial policy-making position, which has great responsibilities and things that health insurance, and obviously in terms of the handling of the money, the investment of the money, and the town's bond rating. Whereas the collector is different. It's more ministerial, follows the system of statutes and regulations. So if you're asking me which would I prefer to be appointed, I'd prefer the treasurer be appointed. I think that's more important to be appointed than a collector. So again, your board can address those two together, or you can address them separately. That's obviously within your purview. So a lot of communities have gone to a treasurer collector. It's not uncommon. But others have stayed with separate treasurer, separate collector. So those options are open for you. I'd recommend moving forward now on the treasurer. You can also move forward now on the treasurer collector or the collector, but at least move on the treasurer. I think that's the most important one.
I'll go to the board members. You've had an opportunity to see
Yeah.
a couple of memos and speak with Jerry.
Yeah,
Any
Mr. Chairman.
thoughts?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, as we know, we've been very fortunate to have had Tony Rando, God bless him, and Barbara for the past 30 years, people who are very skilled, management, financial background, finances, and I think that's been a tremendous benefit to the town. This position is part of the financial team that we have, that we've established, and, it's prudent that we have somebody who is most qualified, learned, and could carry on the duties that we have been carrying on in that department, and also to work collaboratively in all financial issues like we have on many projects. So I've thought it over a lot during the past couple of weeks. I agree, Jerry, that I think we should proceed 100% full speed on making the treasurer's position appointed. On the tax collector, I think we should leave that alone for now. I think that's okay, but I think we have to take care of the treasurer's position, and I think what you've just articulated, I think makes sense. It gets us to a good point. And then we can appoint somebody who can, carry on and the legacy that Tony and Barbara have carried on in this town. So my feeling is to, Bill and Brian, to just take care of the town treasurer, do it as soon as we can, so that we can hire a competent, qualified person to manage that department.
Okay. Thank you. Brian?
Yes, I agree with the statements made by Jerry and Dean. Clearly, I think the position has evolved certainly since Tony was there, and we saw it through the years that Barbara manned it. It's a very, very technical position. As Jerry indicated, it clearly is a policy-type position, and it is a key component of the financial team, along with the town administrator, the town accountant, and town council. So I think it only makes sense, as it does with those positions and also with the fire chief and the police chief, to be appointed. And I also agree, I don't view the collector as the same type of policy maker. It is more administrative and clearly could be subject to the electorate, but I agree that the treasurer ought to be an appointed position.
Okay. Yeah, I've said a few times, I'll restate it in case anybody's missed it. I think over the years, Milford voters specifically have done a tremendous job in putting the right people at the right place at the right time. I think it speaks to our financial health. There isn't, I would not make a move like this casually. I think that, taking it out of the hands of voters and putting it into a political process doesn't take the politics out of it, for sure. There's a political process in the electing public official. There's also a political process in the appointments. I'm just not, it's not in my DNA, I suppose, to try to take another position away from the voters of the town. I think we've seen it in Franklin's attempted to do it and twice been rebuffed. There's a reason for that. I think voters prefer to make their own judgments, their own appointments, and I don't think it takes away from the professionalism. I think the voters have shown an uncanny ability to put people where they belonged, and we've been very, very fortunate in that regard. So I wouldn't support it, but I appreciate the views of the other members of the board, and right now I'd accept a motion to, get a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. A motion that we move forward in working with town council to make the position of town treasurer appointed.
Okay. We can figure out the process in a next vote. To your point, I think it's important that the board get a vote to decide to move forward or not.
Yes.
Brian,
I'll
is there a
second that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes the vote 2-1. I vote opposed. Did the board members want to go forward and talk about the process now, or did you want to take that up at a different meeting?
No, I'd like to do it now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Again, just to reiterate your two choices, you can either follow the statutory system of a vote in the fall by the town meeting, and then a vote on the ballot in the April town meeting, or you can take the shortened position, which has actually the article I put in my June 4th memo for the fall town meeting that would seek special legislation, including the ability to contract. So those are your two choices.
On the first option, Jerry, could you just clarify with me, after a town meeting vote to essentially change the charter?
Well, it's not a charter, we don't
It's not
have
a
a
charter?
charter, but
All
it's
right.
under the statute, it's a system that's available to us if we want to follow. It's two steps. First step is simply a town meeting vote to authorize it to be appointed, but that's not effective until that's then voted by, on the next annual election, so that would be in April. So there's two steps that have to be taken under that
What would that
system.
second step be? Describe the second
It
step
would
for
just
me.
be an article in the warrant should, in effect, it would say, should the position of treasurer be appointed in the town of Milford.
Okay,
It's a
so-
ballot question.
So one gives the general population an opportunity to weigh in,
That's right. That's right.
and that also gives town meeting members an opportunity
First
to weigh in.
town meeting, then the voters, that's correct.
Okay. The second option, looking for special legislation, would remove the general voters out of that decision-making
Just
process.
be town meeting, that's correct. Just town meeting.
Okay. Do the members have a preference of which direction they'd like to go?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think we've talked about this for as long as, 15 years ago, and I think that certainly don't want to take anything from the electorate, but I think in certain cases, I think most people concur or agree that, a position like treasurer it should be a qualified person, should be someone who has the skills, the abilities to carry on the duties of the office, and it really shouldn't be a popularity contest. So, given that, I think that if we went to town meeting and a good majority of people supported that, then I think it would be something that the townspeople would support, and then we could have special legislation. I think it's most important to get someone into that position as soon as possible, because, if you look at, not to be redundant, but if you look at all the things that we've done over the past 20, 25 years, it's because of that financial team. It's because of the town accountant, treasurer, town administrator, FinCom, and all that working together. And so I don't, you don't want to
Which
fool.
option, though? I guess we've already decided this.
Go
board
special
wants-
legislation. After town meeting, we go to special legislation so that, John,
You're talking the second option for this, legislation with the ability to contract, the fall town meeting.
Okay.
yes.
Right?
Yeah, we have a town meeting form of government. Essentially, they make the decisions on how we run our government. So the special legislation, to me, would make the most sense. And I guess thinking back, it's not dissimilar to what we did with the police chief, giving the police chief the power to make his own appointments 10-plus years or so. That went through special legislation, town meeting, and gave the chief the ability to appoint his own individual, so.
In part because we don't have a charter, unlike a lot of communities. There is no charter in Milford. We're just operating under the old system that's been in place for 200 years. So we have done many times changes of this nature through special legislation. It's not uncommon. Some, I guess in '77, there was an attempt at a charter, but it didn't pass. That would be a different process if we had a charter. Without a charter, we've either got to follow the systems in the statute or seek special legislation.
And we did special legislation for town council's position, too.
We did, yes.
To do the ability to contract. So that's typically the way it's been done.
And I think, Mr. Chairman, as you said, Brian, that decision to relinquish our hiring, certainly was probably one of the biggest things that the board's giving up power to do the right thing. And so I don't see that by town meeting and then special legislation, because I think most people who know management and the systems and all that, this position is most important. We can't fool around with it. We need the best person possible, and I think the sooner that we can do it, the better. So I would go along with Jerry's recommendations and all that.
Let me, I don't think Jerry had a preference either way, but, or did you?
I don't, no, not entirely. I think if a preference would be appointed, you guys have to choose
Right.
which system to use.
So just some comments, I guess, on the comments. I appreciate the fact that this board wants to work quickly. However, going through a process to take the voter out of a position they currently vote for is one thing. Now taking the voters out of the process for deciding that troubles me. The second thing is, in reference to the popularity contest, I don't think I or the members of this board want a popularity contest. I'd like to think that we were the most qualified for the position, so we were elected as well. I don't want to demean public officials into thinking that people want a popularity contest when they won an election, that this town has been able to pick qualified people, and I think are still capable. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion?
And the motion is to go forward on the special legislation?
Yes.
Yeah, I would second it, and only, address briefly those comments, Mr. Chairman. I think we got a glimpse this past election cycle of what possibly could be on the horizon, without, Mrs. Oja there. And people felt that, she had another job, and on the ballot was someone, a nice enough young guy, but certainly not anywhere qualified to handle the finances of a town. Another person subsequently, put his name on the ballot, I think partially realizing that, but again, that was not that individual's bailiwick. So, I think that's the potential danger, and I think that position has evolved so much and become so complicated that it's incumbent upon us to make the case to town meeting that it really ought to be a qualified professional. So
Okay.
with that, I will second the motion.
And keep the comments going forward, I guess, I just think that if we wanted to make that case, we certainly should be able to make that case to the voters of the town as well, not just town meeting members. But having said that, we have a legitimate motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's 2. I vote against it, so that's 2-1. Next item on the agenda. Town administrator's recommendation as it relates to senior building custodian. Go ahead, Rick.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jerry's on
The health insurance, Chad, hold on.
Want
Oh,
to
okay,
deal with
sorry,
Jerry
Jerry.
first, so
I jumped around you. I went to old business, and I even jumped over town administrator's report. I was so far down on the
That's
list. I
okay.
apologize for
no
everyone.
problem. We can
Jerry,
come back to it if Jerry wants
right
to.
back to you. You wanna
keep
come back?
Jerry
Yeah.
here, that'd be fine.
Next, I'll go to both town administrator
Yeah.
report, then
Thank
your
you.
recommendation. Sorry about that, Jerry.
That's all right. I don't know where else to go. So this is on the health insurance, and I gave you folks a memo July 12th. You had taken my recommendation and enacted those 2 regulations, which, again, as I explained in the memo, I drew the first regulation based upon a case, which was a good case, and it seemed to create good law. But frankly, as I indicated, Kelly made a good catch on that with her very, very practical experience. And when she spoke to me, she's, I think, potentially absolutely right that the unintended consequences of what I took to be good law just might be too costly. Because there are a significant number of people who do stay on their spouse's system. Again, it's not insignificant. It produces a good savings for the town, and there is a very real risk Kelly saw based upon her experience of dealing with all these folks over many, many years, that people would, if we put this into effect, as I suggested, that first regulation, people would say, well, geez, I better change now, just on the risk that later I can't. And very likely, if it's only 2 or 3, the cost can be $30,000, but it could be a lot more than that. So frankly, I congratulate Kelly. She's absolutely right. She caught it. And I suggest, I give you 2 regulations. The second one doesn't have any unintended consequence. That's a good one. The first one, I would just have you reverse your prior vote, eliminate that one, and then Kelly can notice it with just the second one.
Yeah, it made sense, your memo.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'll second it.
I'll also vote in favor to eliminate our
First regulation.
first regulation.
Undo your
Short-lived,
As-
short-lived
as it's,
regulation.
Written in
Yeah.
the, yeah.
And tell me to stop reading cases.
That's it, that's
We
it.
also put on the minutes that town council made a mistake. I think that's important for the future. Jeannie?
It's how we learn. Okay, I'm sorry. Next item on the agenda is town administrator's report. Rick?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I wonder why you paused when I first jumped 3 levels.
I've been informed by the police chief that the new flashing light has been installed at the intersection of Fruit Street and South Main Streets. This, as you know, was done in response to the number and severity of crashes at this intersection. I'm informed the new light has a strobe provision, so that the light unit is brighter and more noticeable. The cost was paid for from the traffic line item in the police department budget, so that is in place. Just a quick update on the police roof. Again, work on replacing the police roof is continuing. I'm informed it's about 20% of the flat roof has in fact been replaced, and work is ongoing. I'd like to thank everyone at the senior center for keeping the center open extra hours during the heat wave last week. I'm informed it was appreciated by many. The Milford Lions Club, the Milford Park Commissioners would like to publicly thank the Milford Lions Club for sponsoring the entertainment at Plains Park for the July 3rd fireworks display. The Lions Club has graciously covered these costs for the past several years and is greatly appreciated by not only the park commissioners, but also the many thousands of people who attended the fireworks each and every year. Finally, the Portuguese picnic, I'm informed, went without any major incident. There were only 2 arrests. I'm told on Saturday there were as many as 10,000 people at the picnic, and on Sunday, as many as 3,000 people attended. And again, the chief reports no real incidents to be concerned with. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any questions for town
No,
administrator?
Mr. Chairman.
I don't have any.
Okay. Now, we're going to go to old business.
Okay.
We addressed health insurance regulations because Jerry was here. Now we have town administrator's recommendation as it relates to senior building custodian.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The position of the senior building custodian was advertised, as you know, in the town crier, notice on MRC and Milford TV. 23 job descriptions were distributed, 21 people put in applications. We did interviews of actually 5 people on July 16th, 2013. Present were Mr. Charles Scaff, present senior building custodian, Police Chief O'Laughlin, and myself. All 5 candidates interviewed, we felt, were well-qualified, well-experienced. However, based on extensive experience in maintenance and facilities management, as well as related job experience, it is apparent that Mr. Carlos Benjamin has the necessary skills and background to support his appointment. He has supervised as many as 13 people at his current place of employment, HRM Inc. in Hopkinton, as a property manager. He's experienced in repairs, maintenance, snow removal, has worked with subcontractors, tradesmen, ordering of supplies. In the interview process, it's clear he understands the on-call nature of the position, and it was the consensus of the 3 interviewing members and myself included, obviously, that he be appointed as a senior building custodian.
Is there a motion?
If I may, just to finish, my recommendation would be to appoint him, number 1, and to start him at grade 2, step 1, at an hourly rate of $19.90 per hour, and to begin work on July 29th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ryan?
Seconded.
I'll also vote in favor. That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Old business, is there any other old business by the members?
No, Mr. Chairman, I have
Hey,
none.
Brian?
I don't have any, no.
I had a piece of old business. What I'd like to do is ask the town administrator to look into the property that was fire damaged on Water Street. And let me begin by saying I can't for the life of me understand why that structure's still up. To a casual observer, and even somebody who's untrained, it's clear that it's not safe. It's not safe for people who walk by it. It's not safe for our neighbors, and nobody should have to put up with it. And I'm wondering if it was in another area of the community, would it still be up and be unsafe and a hazard to the neighbors? So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like you to work with the building inspector, and I'd also like to have you work with Jerry Moody and see how fast we can take it down if we need to intercede as a town, because there's no reason why that structure should still be up. And if folks haven't seen it recently, they need to go by it.
I will do that. Thank you.
Because if the owner's not ready to do it and the bank's holding it up, the town should do it, because it's an imminent hazard. It's collapsing within itself, and there are pieces that could clearly fall into the sidewalk. And it's too close to the structures to be allowed to, the other structures, to be allowed to stay like that. I don't know what's taking so long, so it's frustrating. If we declared it a hazard, I don't know what's holding it up, but I suggest Jerry get involved.
Good.
All right. Under new business, Milford firefighters have asked for permission to obstruct for a toll road.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
I also vote in favor. That's on 9/14 from 9 to 12. Next item on the agenda is temporary treasurer, assistant treasurer. Let me just read this note from Kelly Peace. Temporary treasurer, suggesting that we appoint Ms. Janet Ferrera to the position of interim assistant town treasurer for the duration of the time that Kelly is temporary treasurer.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Seconded.
I'd also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Next item on the agenda is a request by the tradesman for application of extension of serving hours for Sunday morning for an additional hour.
Motion.
Seconded.
I'd also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Next item on the agenda is BP Trucking is looking for a permit to obstruct for what appears to be 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. On July 29th in order to do some clean out of building on, which street is that?
Spruce.
89 Main building.
It's motion, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
All right. I'll also vote in favor. That's unanimous.
There's one add-on, Mr. Chairman, that,
Okay, Pepperoncinis.
yes,
Okay.
thank you.
So we have an add-on that's not on the agenda. It's an application for a one-day license for Peppercinis Pizzeria and Grill, 201 East Main Street, for September 8th, and it's 12 to 6 to serve in the parking lot. And the activity and proceeds of the benefit Fisher House for Veterans.
Motion.
Seconded.
I'd also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Is there any other new business by the members? Dean?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Brian?
I don't have any new business.
Okay. So we'll jump to correspondence. Police chief has provided a liquor license establishments activities report. What's the favor of the board? They want to go over this tonight, or like to discuss it now, or put it as a future agenda item? It's up to you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think most of the reports, there was nothing really disturbing. Some of them had no incidents, and some of them had a couple, but not really. But I think at some point, this McDonald's things, the McDonald's that we have, and I don't want to say put everything in the same category, but at some point, it might be good to maybe have all the McDonald's in to talk about some of the infractions. If you look at the one at 139 South Main Street, that has the most, and might be something that, we did it before, and I think it works. So maybe if you'd like, if Ken, to work with the town administrator at some point, when things slow down a little bit, we have some of the managers on McDonald's and just, go over some of these things, because one, early in the morning, you have kids coming from out of towns and all that, and it could be our own kids, whatever, so it could be a situation where we try to prevent some problems. But that was the only thing that really stuck out to me.
Okay, Brian?
Yeah, I saw the level of activity at McDonald's, but no, I don't think that there was anything else there that I found particularly troubling. A couple of fights at the Turtle Tavern and one at TD's, but it seems as though the staff did what they could do and contacted the police. I did have to, only at the Marchigiano Club could someone break into the place and steal beer. I mean, usually they'd hit the cash register or something. They break into the Marquis, they grab the beer. So, I don't know. It was, in terms of reports that we've seen in the past, I don't find it as troubling as other ones that we've seen.
Yeah, and some of the volume of calls from McDonald's, at first blush, I had to look through it a little while longer as well, because, an example of boyfriend and girlfriend arguing. One caller reported males attempting to forcibly place a male into a vehicle. Officers responded and determined that those people were caring for a mentally handicapped person. Caller reports the party may be intoxicated. McDonald's doesn't serve alcohol, so clearly it wasn't something that happened on their premises. A wallet was found. The owner was identified. Another caller reported that they thought somebody was using drugs. Police investigated. There were no drugs involved, and the person was homeless and was sent on their way. So, it seems like there's a lot of them that they're the right things, the right types of calls. If somebody thinks somebody's in distress, they call and find out later it's a boyfriend, girlfriend arguing, or if somebody found a wallet, you'd want them to report it. I'm not trying to take away from the comments made about it, but I did notice some of the severity of some of there didn't seem to be as many severe reports on this one, so I'm okay doing whatever the board would like to do.
In the comments regarding the Marchigiano, we probably know a lot of those people that would do that.
Next item we have in correspondence, police chief, note to the board and to town administrator regarding alcohol training program, and specifically the TGIF Friday Skillsoft program. It's the chief's recommendation the Board of Selectmen accept the Skillsoft liquor license employee training program and examination as being in compliance with the town of Milford liquor license regulations.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
I'll also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Next, we have, for From the temporary treasurer, message to this board, a note to this board informing the board that effective immediately, that the town of Milford is now an approved employer of the Digital Federal Credit Union. Any active or retired town employee or their immediate family members may stop by a DCU branch to open an account. And on August 7th, there'll be representatives, DCU will have representatives in town to meet with people should they have any questions about the services they provide. That's it for correspondence and informational correspondence. Are there topics that the members would like to discuss of the two that we received? We received FiOS TV rate increases. It seems like we seem to get one of these
Every
from a
6
cable
months.
provider every few months. And the next one is the, from Deval Patrick, Governor Deval Patrick, and his current bill, spending bill, he restricted local aid by 177 million, and transportation by 240 million. I think the House and Senate are working towards solutions in that regard. If there's any comments the board would like to make. Any other correspondence the board members have received?
Mr. Chairman, Wednesday night was begin at 6.
Yes, Wednesday night will begin at 6. It'll be, since they weren't able to take feedback from the community on water, they're going to do that then
High school, right?
at the high school auditorium. Yeah, thankfully, we're not upstairs. All right. So if that's
Motion to adjourn?
all the items for business by this board, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yep.
All right.
Seconded.
I also vote in favor. That's unanimous. We are not going into executive session, and therefore this concludes the business of this board this evening. Thank you very much.